Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today I have a very special guest. Her name is Leah Boschler. And I found her on Instagram as she was a person. I guess her Instagram handle is like time mastery coach, business coach. And I was like, interesting. I wonder what that's about. And I scrolled through her page and just saw like very motivational content. Like, I'm a huge advocate of the idea that you have 16 hours in a day, and that people who make the excuse that I don't have time, I'm like, that's a weak excuse. That's an excuse that I never can get behind. And it's an excuse that I always will like critique and say, yo, that's not a real excuse. And hearing her content and seeing what she does, and it really inspired me. And I see that she has a lot of success stories with her business that she created. And I'm very glad that she's on for today. So thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So tell me about how this coaching journey began. Like, would you say you view yourself as always someone who's good with time management, or is it something you learned over time, or?
Uh-huh. Oh, it's definitely something I had to learn. I mean, the whole reason I'm coaching on this, because I probably could have chosen other things too, but I chose time management, or as I like to call it, time mastery, just to add a bit of a twist, spark to it. It's not boring old time management. It really is something I'm truly excited about, and I teach with a lot of energy and passion. So I used to have terrible time management. Like, it got to the point where it felt like I was playing mind games with myself. Like, oh, you've got more time, right? 10 p.m., you've got more time. It's due at 12. You've got 2 hours left, right? Just wait another hour. Start at 11. So it got so bad to the point where I would have a lot of breakdowns, a lot of anxiety, just like, I don't know if there were panic attacks, but it almost felt that way, right? And I would obviously stay up really late, finishing all my work, turning things in last minute, often would turn things in late, had to then, and by the way, this was back in high school, but even my first 2 years of college, I'd have to lie to my teachers, felt terrible, and then at school, try to avoid them because, you don't want to look them in the eye and tell them something that's fake, right? A lie. So yeah, it was hard. It was hard for me. And I also wasn't the best test taker. So it was like, no matter how hard I worked and I put in so many hours, it's just the low efficiency coupled with not knowing how to study effectively. It really hurt my grades. It hurt my productivity, my confidence. I felt like I had time for nothing other than school. And it was that way all the way until my second year of college, which is when I basically found my first mentor. He, you could say, saved me, right? Obviously I put in the work, but he showed me the steps, and I could not be more grateful. hmm
Who was that first mentor?
Yeah, absolutely. So he doesn't do this anymore, but his name is Richard Yu. You can search him up. He's pretty big on
Oh,
Instagram,
yeah. I've
etc.
heard of him. What would you say were the main lessons you learned from him?
Main lessons I learned from him, or
Yeah, from Richard Yu.
yeah. Main lessons. He has an absolutely incredible work ethic, and that was one of the first things that drew me to him. I was watching, how I learned of him was I was on YouTube one day, probably after exams, typical me back in the day, just scrolling endlessly, probably wasting, not kidding you, I would probably waste up to 6 hours per day on YouTube. There were days like that. Okay. Very embarrassing to talk about now, but that's who I was just a few years ago. So I saw this video and it was titled 3:35 or 3:30 a.m. morning routine of a UCLA student. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? Right? Is this a joke? So I pressed on it. I was curious, okay. And in the next 10 minutes, it basically just changed my perspective on how I was settling and I couldn't afford to keep on settling. So his work ethic in terms of being able to make sacrifices, like wake up at 3:30 something so he could continue finishing his med school studies while starting his own business and working internship. I'm not going to go too deep, but just his ability to make sacrifices and delay gratification, suffer a bit in the moment to get what he wants long term, and only being what, 20, 21 at the time, that really spoke to me. He's 1.5 years older than me. So I realized in that moment, like, Leah, you're not quote unquote young. And even if you are young, there's no time to waste, right? It really doesn't matter how old you are. So I just got this massive sense of urgency. And after joining his program, some other big lessons were, I mean, yeah, the urgency one was a big one. I realized because he shared some stories of him working as a first responder. Okay, that was him before starting a business, and how he saw people every single day, right? Every single day, responding to gunshots or whatever wounds, right? Car accidents, and there were kids, babies, right? So it just kind of woke me up in a sense. I completely changed my work ethic, right? Instead of just settling, I became what you can call a high performer, like so always trying to go the extra mile. I call it the one more rep mentality. It's like at the gym, you don't just do 10 reps. If you're supposed to do 10, you do 11 or a bit more. So those are some of the main lessons. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. You worked with him like individually. You could actually talk with him through his program.
So it was a group coaching program. There were a lot of students in there. He targeted college students. I think there were over 800. So definitely not one on one, but there were one on one parts. So coaching calls, for example, right? We all had a chance to ask him a question. It was short, each person maybe, 3-4 minutes, but still, we got the support we needed. Yeah.
That's really interesting. And then, so then you go to Richard Yu. How long were you in his program?
I was in his program. The first one, it's called, or it was called, the High Performance Training Program. I was in it for, I think, because I ascended too, right? So in total, probably 8 months or so. Yeah.
Sure. And then so you go through that 8 months of learning and growing, and then what? How does your life look after that? What is your next step?
Yeah. So for me, it really didn't even take 8 months. Like I just continued with him because I was so amazed at my progress and I really appreciated hard accountability. I like that kind of leadership style. I like when people call me out and really push me. And so I got that from the program I ascended. But for me, within the first few weeks, like even within the first week or two, I started seeing big changes. And it was a big investment for me, right? Which is I think it's a major reason why investing yourself works. It's because if you invest, and especially a big investment, you have the sense of urgency, right? To take action. Whatever you've been delaying for so long, you finally do it. And so for me, it was like, yeah, I've been wanting to overcome procrastination for probably, I don't know, 6 years, ever since I started, right? Freshman year of high school. But I never did anything about it. I never took it seriously until I decided to change. So it was basically overnight, right? Not going to say all my problems disappeared overnight, but I made changes in terms of my sleep schedule, going from sleeping, I don't know, 1, 2 a.m. and leaving things till the last minute, like starting my work probably at 6 p.m. I went from that to starting my work at 6:30 a.m. So like that was the degree of the change. It was total 180. Yeah.
Man, interesting. And did you see like an uptick in GPA or performance at school?
Performance at school. So I had been a good student even when I had these terrible habits. But
Fair enough.
the reason, though, the sacrifice I had to make was basically having no time for anything other than studying, right? So I would be sitting the whole day, my back hurting, neck hurting, just sore, feeling extremely unproductive. So that's what got me to pretty good grades even before. But afterwards, what I was able to do was cut down my work hours probably by like 50%, if not more. I seriously started finishing all my work for college, like no later than, 2 p.m. And it gave me all this free time to do whatever I wanted. And I started reading, right? I started just joining all these extracurriculars and challenging myself with leadership positions, like things I used to run away from. I started doing because I saw an opportunity for growth. Yeah.
Interesting. Any books in particular that really impacted you?
Books. Definitely. The first book that I read that really got me hooked on self-development and also got me to start loving reading because I actually used to, or at least I used to tell myself I hated reading, that it was boring. Okay. So I kind of grew up elementary, middle, even high school with that mindset of, oh, I don't like reading. It's not for me. Right. But I completely shifted that after reading How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Have you read it?
It's kind of funny. I'm actually on chapter 3 right now as we speak.
No
It's kind of
way.
interesting.
Yeah. What's been your biggest takeaway?
One of my favorite takeaways so far was when he was given an example of how, like, I forget what it was, but it was a husband and wife, and the wife was tasked to ask the husband, "So what are your critiques of me? What are your, biggest concerns with me? What would you like to see me change?" And I guess it was the chapter on like critiquing versus showing appreciation, and how, like, if you show some appreciation for someone, they're so much more willing to change than if you're just super critical. So like his response was, "I love you just the way you are. You're amazing." And then, like, she was so receptive to that she then wanted to be a better version of herself to
Wow.
continue the relationship. And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting," because I've always had a, I'm the same way. It's like I want someone to tell it to me straight. I want to be critiqued. I want someone to be harsh. But it's like there's another side to it too, where it's like sometimes if you're too harsh with someone, it can be counterproductive. And I've
Mm,
seen that before in situations where I'm too harsh, and I'm like, maybe I should be a little bit more,
mm,
compassionate slash affirming in some ways. And so that
mhm.
was an interesting example for me, at least. What
100%.
was what would you say your biggest takeaway from the book is? I'm only in chapter 3, so
Yeah,
I've seen a small section of it.
absolutely. I mean, I probably read it 3 years ago. I don't remember so many specific examples, but just things like really listen, right? Like, how many people really listen when they're talking to someone? At least for me, I used to be the kind of person who would always think, oh, what do I answer with next, right? Especially in a situation where I'm nervous, like, I don't know, I'm talking to a mentor or an interview. I struggled with listening so much. But when you're able to just listen and shut up, okay, excuse my lack of a better language, but when you're able to just listen and be fully present, it's like the answer comes to you. What you say next, it just flows out, right? So it was even simple things like that. And also reading that book, I think helped me then train my first team members and give them more authority, like give them more decision making power instead of me micromanaging. I understood that empowering others, which was much more important than, micromanaging, telling them exactly what to do every step of the way. And I think it also played a part in me being able to overcome um, a bad relationship I used to have with my dad. Like, we used to not get along so well, right? And I was able to overcome that by speaking up and really, as you said, it's like showing appreciation, which then actually makes someone want to change, right? Like, they feel so loved and appreciated by you that they actually want to be better. Yeah.
Man, that's really well said. And so you read these books, or this book and a few others, and then, like, when did you start this coaching business? Like, what inspired you to start? Like, was it Richard Yu? Was it,
Yeah.
what made you think of this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've stayed with Richard for quite a while. After his initial program, the high performance training program, where I absolutely changed my lifestyle, my habits, time management, I just saw his work day in and day out, like as a coach, responding to questions, coming on coaching calls full of energy, and getting all these amazing reviews and raving fans. And I was like, wow, I would love to do this too. So it was definitely seeing him at work and then feeling like I would love to do that. Right? That was one. But then also, it was just realizing more and more that the normal path of just getting any job out of undergrad, like just getting whatever comes to you and whatever you can get, and climbing that ladder and settling, it was just something I wasn't willing to settle for. Right? The more I saw people succeed online, the more I realized, hey, I can do this too. And the normal life, which maybe my parents are accustomed to because of their day and age, how they grew up, it's really not normal anymore. And even if it is normal, like, it's very possible to step out of that and do your own thing. Yeah,
That's really well said. That resonates with me a lot. Coming
really.
from a similar community of, like, people who are like, go to college, get a job, etc. And it's like, what if you created your own
Uh-huh.
situation where you provided jobs?
Exactly.
There's so many businesses out there. It's like there needs to be business owners as well. But either way, but that's awesome. And so tell me about, like, how'd you get your first client, or how'd you, market, or, did you just talk to friends, or, yeah, to explain how this all started.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I invest in myself I'm not going to say I figured it out alone. I figured nothing out alone, besides small details along the way, right? I had mentors every step of the way. I basically invested in a program to show me exactly how to become a coach and turn my transformation knowledge into a coaching program and sell it. I invested in that in March of 2021.
And
Okay.
what's this program called?
It was called High Performance Influencer. Again, same mentor, but he's not doing that anymore. So his niche has shifted too. But I invested in that. It was a big investment for me. I actually had to save up for it for 2 months, and therefore I took crazy action. Okay, like in my mind, it was just, I will do whatever it takes to make this work. And I think that's also a big part of the reason why I did make it work. Because I had a lot of friends who joined around the same time, and the majority of people kind of just fell off. You know, they slowly disappeared week by week. You saw less of them. And before you knew it, it's like, where's this guy or where's this girl? Right. So for me, it was really feeling that urgency from, oh my gosh, this is a massive investment. I want to make it back ASAP. And also, at that point, I had no plan B. So basically, when I decided to take on coaching and invest in this program, I had just gotten an internship, and it was a great internship, good company, Ernst& and Young, right? So I actually dropped that completely. Like I told them, look, I'm not going to take it up. I'm sorry. Like, thank you for the offer, da da da. So I dropped that, which meant I had zero plan B. And that also fed into my urgency. And so, I mean, it was a great program, taught me everything I needed step by step. It was definitely hard work, not going to lie, right? Every day, I think for the first 45 days or so, it was wake up at 6:30. Maybe Sundays I took a day off, but definitely not the whole day. So Monday to Saturday, wake up 6:30. By 7 a.m., I'm at my desk. I'm doing my deep work. I'm working on the business. And that was also my senior year of college, undergrad. So it was like first probably 3 hours of the day, work on my business, then finish all my college work as quickly as possible, and then get back to the business, right? Afternoons, take calls or whatever. So there were definitely days at the start where in a day I'd take maybe 7 calls and I would be absolutely exhausted at the end. Like I couldn't even speak anymore and I'd lose my voice. But looking back, it was definitely worth it. Yeah.
Man. And so tell me about, I guess, do you have any like success stories of or people like who you have impacted and like who are like, man, I'm so glad that I went through you as a coach, and like how did that make you feel?
100%. Yeah, I think that's one of the most rewarding things. Like something I learned from my mentor, right? Whenever you're having a bad day as a coach, just have like a video where you have all your clients and their testimonials, like things they say about you, obviously very authentic, but just put them all together, all those videos, and play it on repeat, right? If you need that. So I don't do that, by the way, but definitely, I'd say one of the two every client stands out, but I can share 2 stories real quick.
Mm.
One of my first clients, she was probably the second client I enrolled ever. Okay, when I started, 2021 March, second client I enrolled. By the way, I was terrible at sales at the start. I was probably shaking. I had no idea what I was doing, right? But she took a chance. I mean, on herself, but also I see it as a chance on me. Right? It gave me an opportunity to step up as a coach and make this happen. So, like, especially just starting out, she was in my first cohort, and 8 weeks later, we had our little, transformation interview or testimonial, whatever you want to call it. And she told me, Leah, what I'm going to take away from this program, it's not so much all the specific habits, but it's more so like I've changed my perception. Again, it's about settling versus over delivering, right? Or doing a bit more, that mindset. She told me before, like if I had maybe an assignment due today, all I do the entire day is just work on the assignment, right? And if I got it done, that's all I needed. But now it's, I made a commitment. I told myself I'm going to work out 3 times every week. I'm going to the gym. I don't care if I have a test today. I don't care if I have something due. I'm going to the gym, right? So she found herself working out just very sporadically, right? Maybe once per week, maybe once every 3 weeks, and not keeping her promises, to really setting a few keystone habits, as I call it. You don't need many, you just need a few. One of them for her was working out, and she really stuck to it. right? And it just made her feel proud, feel confident, right? Like she could trust herself. Yeah, that was one. And she was a really close friend. I don't know if I mentioned that, which is why it meant a lot to me. Yeah. And then another was this lady. She's a bit older, Julie. I mean, if she ever listens or watches this, Julie came into my program. I think this was summer 2022 or towards the end of 2022. She she'd been wanting to write a book for a long time, and basically we found out the pattern was she was putting others in front of herself. So always saying yes to other people, but never saying yes to herself, right? Her priorities were always last. And so she found herself busy the entire day, working, but it was always busy work, it was not productive. And things that she had literally been wanting to do for decades, like writing a book, it meant a lot to her, right? She put it off, felt like she didn't have time for it, even felt guilty. Like at first when we made that shift, where I told her, Julie, you're going to spend the first half an hour, few hours in the morning writing your book first, right? I don't care what happens. I don't care whoever needs whatever from you, you work on yourself first, right? You deserve it. So when we made that shift, at first she was even guilty. Like, I don't deserve this, right? Do I deserve to work on myself first? But then just 3 weeks later, she worked with me for 3 weeks. 3 weeks later, she basically had her book done. And at this point, it's completely done, by the way. And on our last call, she was a bit emotional, right? It was tears of joy. And just seeing that, it's just the feeling, a moment, her on the screen. Never going to forget that. Yeah.
Man, that's amazing. I have some thoughts on both of those in some sense. Yeah, like with that first one, when she was mentioning about like, hey, I want to hit the gym as well. It's like, I don't just have this one priority. I have, a multiple set of priorities. And it's like, from my experience, it's like I've gone to school these past 4 years while also working quite a lot for this business, this family business. And I noticed that, like, I see some people who only go to school, or it's like, this is my one priority, school. And it's like, their GPA suffers, their time management suffers. They're the people who are complaining about time the most. And it's like, I feel like if I only had school, like, I would be like, oh, I have this morning to kind of chill. I have time, It's like you have this reverse psychology of like, there's not that urgency like you're talking about. It's like,
Yep.
If I only have this assignment due in 4 days and that's my only priority, of course I'm going to put it off and do other things and waste time. But, if I have work, gym, side hustle, friends, and it's all scheduled out in a rigorous schedule, then it's like, oh, I only have 1.75 hours in my day built for this assignment. And so I have to do it. And so that's amazing. And so
100%.
That's just advice from me is like, fill your day, try to make it so that any part of your day is filled with something, even if it is like play, like you can throw that on your schedule and it shows like, the play time is between 3 and 6 or whatever it happens to be. But then it's like, it forces you to stay rigorous with your time management. And that's from my experience, at least. And yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, a lot of respect to you, Harley, for, running your family business or playing a big part in it, and then also going to school. Yeah.
Well, thanks. And yeah, and I guess this other one, the second success story, I can also relate with in a lot of ways too. Like, there's a personality trait called agreeableness, which you probably have heard of, where it's like you're going to negotiate for the needs of others before the needs of your own self. And so it's like, I have that same problem where sometimes it's like, oh, I'll sacrifice my time for others. I'll give and give and give and give. But then there had to be a switch that happened where it's like, no, I have to focus on myself even more so that I can even be a better assistance to others later. And
100%.
It's awesome news that one client of yours really wrote the book. I'm curious what the book is called, because I'm just wanting to look it up, honestly.
I'll ask her. I'm actually not sure. I don't know if it's
sure
yet, but she told me she's done. So for sure, we'll
keep in touch on it. Yeah. Well, that's amazing. And so after all this, like, what would you say? Like, I wanted to actually ask, switching topics, how important do you feel like it is to you to like plan out your day? Like, I've seen a few videos of yours where you're like, I have my entire schedule laid out. Like, explain to me why you feel like that's important. I feel like it's important, but I just want others to hear why.
Yeah, 100%. It's so important. Like, if there's one habit you can start with to improve your time management, it's literally just writing down everything you're going to do tomorrow on paper before you go to bed tonight, right? So plan your day the night before. And why it's important is because you are setting intentions for the next day, right? Well, there's several reasons. Let me break it down more. It's not just intentions. It means you're able to get better sleep because you're not thinking about, oh, what do I still have to do tomorrow, right? Oh, let me try to piece all this together and remember, oh, I have that and I have that and I have that. No, it's all on paper, right? So you keep nothing in your head. You're able to relax in the evening, right? Have a dinner, be present with your family, your loved ones. You're able to, just really relax in the evening, be present, and also get good quality sleep, right? And on top of that, what happens the next morning when you wake up, because I've literally, like, even today, right, I would say my time management, my performance is good. But if I don't plan my day the night before, there's a difference. I notice it. I wake up, I have no idea what to do, right? I'm slower. I'm much slower. I take my time with everything from brushing my teeth to, I don't know, folding my clothes, right? The smallest things. And those things add up, right? So if you know exactly when you're starting your work the next morning, what exactly you're doing at every half an hour, it just helps you stay focused, right? Yeah, it's that good urgency you need. Yeah,
That's really well said. There's been times where it's like, man, I can't sleep. And maybe this is a bad habit, but sometimes I'll write down my schedule on like a Google Doc, which of course it's like got that blue light, so it might keep me up more, and it's not on paper, but it sometimes helps me also, like, where it's like no longer is it in my mind, it's on paper, or it's written down. And man, that's well said. I didn't even really think about why that would be a great reason, and now that you said it, I'm like, man, that's such a great reason. That's awesome.
there's definitely a reason. Yeah.
And like, I was gonna ask, losing my mind, but I was gonna say, like, how long have you been planning out your day like that? Like, did you learn that from Richard, or have you done that beforehand, or like, how long have you been doing this?
100%. So I don't actually remember if I used to do this before I learned from Richard. Probably not. Or even if I did, it just, it wasn't something I stuck to. Right? Maybe I just rushed through it. It was a checklist item. Oh, let me just get it off my head and do it. But then the next day I probably wouldn't actually stick to it. Whereas now, or ever since I joined Richard's program and I learned the importance of it and why, right? Often people are like, just do it, but you don't understand why, and it doesn't last. So once I understood why, I started doing it every day, and it became a habit. Yeah.
It's amazing. Have you ever read the book Atomic Habits?
That is one book. Like, everyone asks me that, and when I say no, they're like, wait, what? But you coach on time management. Are you kidding me? So
That's okay. I was just curious. It's like what you're saying really ties in a lot of ways, of like this idea of like, this idea of, okay, I have a goal and it's kind of far out there, and so many people have all these goals, and it's like, I want to be a time mastery coach. I want to be a podcast person, etc. It's like people can say and have all these goals, but the point of all this is like a goal, like, successful people and non-successful people all have goals. Goals are not what separate the successful and non-successful. It's actually, are you able to implement the habits on the regular to become the person that you want to be? Because the habits that you enact regularly actually become your identity. So it's like, I want to be a big podcaster. So it's like, okay, no. So I'm going to wake up and schedule with different people. I'm going to network. I'm going to edit. I'm going to blank. I'm going to do this, this, and this so that I can become this. And so it's like, I'm going to plan out my day so that I can become a person that has the habits of a podcaster, so that my identity can become a podcaster. And so, like, that's interesting. So it's like, I don't know. It just made me think of this, and how you teach people on habits, because habits form identities, and because people have a goal to become something, but the habits are literally the only way to get there. So you're really in line with what that book is saying, but I just wanted to throw that in.
No, for sure. I mean, it's definitely one on my list. I'm currently reading The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. It's also an excellent book. If you want to understand because I learned a lot of new things here. But the one thing I learned was how habits actually work, right? Why do we have habits? Like, how do they form? How do they break? Right? Why is it that, we broke a certain habit or we formed a certain habit? So it teaches you exactly, it's just a simple process, right? It's actually so simple. If you want, I can teach it real quick.
Sure, go for
That
it.
be helpful? Yeah. So, I mean, every habit, it's really just composed of three things. There's a cue, that's like the signal to do something, right? Starts with the cue. Then you've got the routine, which is the actual habit, right? What we call habit. So, what you actually do. And then lastly, a reward. Okay. So, the reward can be, many things. It can be financial, it can be just feelings, satisfaction, stress relief, right? And I'll give you a more practical example. So let's say the habit of waking up on time, right? So the cue is going to be your alarm sounding, right? That's the signal. And then the routine is going to be getting up, switching it off, right? And then the reward is a feeling of greatness that you stuck to your word or whatever it is, right? Whatever you're seeking. And so if you want to change a habit, you really just replace the routine. You don't have to change anything about the cue or the reward because changing those are difficult. You just replace the routine, right? So here with the waking up on time, if you want to start waking up on time, let's think, then yeah, maybe right now it's like you're hitting snooze several times, right? So then or no, that's a bad example. I'm trying to think, what were the examples they gave in the book? I'll give you a better one. Okay, so scratch the waking up on time, but that's how it
Sure.
works. Okay, that's the process.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you one that actually applies to me recently. So
Yeah.
ever since kindergarten, as long as I can remember, I've had this terrible habit of biting my nails or like picking on them. And
Same.
really, yeah. But like as a girl, that's shameful. It's not nice to have nails that are always picked on and short, and sometimes it would hurt, right? I'd pick them to the point where like it would be painful for days, right? And I've struggled with this for so long, told myself I'd overcome for so long until literally recently. Like I'd say until 2 weeks ago. So for the past 3 weeks, literally started 3 weeks ago, I have not chipped at my nails at all. And the reason is because I understood this. Before, the routine was, okay, I feel stressed or I feel bored. And I knew that the reward I was seeking, or like the cue was just boredom. And then the reward was, keeping myself busy or entertained, feeling satisfied afterwards. So I knew those two pieces. And so I thought, how can I simply replace this bad habit of chipping with something else that still gets me that reward, right? Feeling like, I don't know, I'm filling my mind with something or I'm feeling satisfied. So what I did was I simply, every time I felt the urge to pick at them, I'd go like this. I'd clench my hands together. And it was a way for me to release that energy too, right? I felt like it was really just an energy release that I was craving. So I just did this and I've actually overcome it. Like literally 3 weeks later, I've got my nails done. So yeah.
Wow, that's insane. Interesting. Like, so you're explaining that you can't necessarily change the feelings of stress or like the cue or the
Yeah,
environment necessarily,
exactly.
and you can't always change how you're going to react to whatever is going to occur, the reward that you're going to have, but you can actually replace the actual ritual or routine with
Yeah,
something else that might give a similar reward and would make sense after the following the cue that you had. So it's like that's
exactly.
interesting. I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of examples like,
Because
well, I'll yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, just to elaborate on that a bit more, like think about it. I don't crave biting my nails. Like that's not what I crave. The act of biting my nails, no. Right? I craved something that came after that or in the process of doing that, which was whatever it was. I don't know, dopamine, stress relief. And I also knew the cue, which was anytime, especially it would always happen at night, right? At night when I was relaxing, number one, I was bored. I think it was really just boredom. It's like when I was bored, I'd start doing it almost subconsciously, right? So I can't change boredom per se. Like there are going to be moments where I feel bored, not many, but when I'm relaxing, maybe I feel that way. So I can't always change the cue, how I'm feeling. And also, if I crave the reward, then I crave the reward. Like, I can't really change that, or at least I don't know yet. So if that's the case, I simply change the routine. I change what I do to still get the reward, right?
Man, that's really good.
Yeah.
It's making me think of an interesting example. It's kind of personal in some ways, but honestly, the first episode, if you scroll back on my list of episodes, the first episode I did was, it's called like, it was me talking about porn addiction and me overcoming this addiction of porn, which honestly, like 95% of guys really have this problem. But like, it's similar where it's like I was this cue of like stress or boredom, whatever the two, and I would have that ritual, and then, I'd be searching for that dopamine. But then over time, I figured out ways I could replace it by walking outside, B, creating content, like clip creating, and C, maybe working out. And just those three things provided more dopamine in general than that, the act of watching porn would. And so it's like, I see a little parallel of like, so that's what I did, but I didn't even realize I was doing it. I was just replacing the ritual to get the similar reward when the cue would occur. So it's like I'd notice the cue, and it's like, okay, time to move, time to get away from my phone, and time to, get moving on something important. And so it's kind of personal, but honestly, it really worked for me. And so,
great example though. Like, I have a friend who actually coaches on this, and he always says, like, there's a reason you watch it, right? Don't just focus on stop watching it, but focus on why. Like, what is it that you're trying to fulfill by watching it, right? And if you solve that, or if you understand that, then you can replace it. So I'm totally with you on that. Yeah. And congratulations. That's a big step.
Thank you. Yeah. Life is a lot better without it in so many ways. So yeah, that's amazing. And so I was going to ask, like, you were explaining that you had to have a hard convo with your dad, maybe because you didn't exactly say why, which is okay, but I was curious, like, what does your family think of you taking this non-contemporary path? Like, was there some tension in the beginning? Like, how do they feel about it now that you've seen a little bit of success? Like, explain that story.
Yeah, absolutely. So initially, my parents were against me investing. I consulted with them the first time because I was actually going to hire that mentor in January of 2021, but I ended up hiring him in March, right? 2 months later. So what had happened was, on the first call, I just wasn't ready. I consulted with my parents. They were like, what is coaching? Do you feel like you can really do it? Understandable, because they grew up, 40, 50 years ago. So they just didn't know. Right. And I think it was really just a lack of conviction myself, because I had that lack of conviction. I couldn't convince them, and their hesitancy, skepticism just made me say no even more. But for the next 2 months, literally every single day, I was thinking about it. I could not stop thinking about it. So to me, it was clear that actually, this was something I wanted to do, even though getting into the program, I didn't yet know what my niche was going to be. I decided, look, it's been 2 freaking months of me thinking about this every day, right? I think it's a calling. So I took the leap and I saved up for it, right? So thankfully, I didn't have to ask my parents for the money. And I was able to make that decision myself in March. I did. Initially, my parents, very, very grateful, very blessed that they've always supported me and tried to expose me to different experiences. But initially, they were definitely skeptical, right? Like, I was talking to my dad, but I knew with full conviction I was going to make this work. So it's almost weird because I knew, but when I would talk to my dad at the start, at the dinner table, he would just laugh and kind of like shake his head, right? Like, yeah, we'll see, right? But yeah, I gave myself no other plan B, as I talked about earlier, right? There was no other option. So I started getting results very quickly. Started taking calls, booking calls, taking calls, making some closes. My friends were joining. And I tell my dad, like, initially when I started taking calls, by the way, I told him, can you go outside for a walk? Like, I don't want you in the house, because I was so nervous, right? So he'd come back from a walk maybe an hour later, and I'd be like, hey, Dad, I just collected $500. Okay, my initial pricing. But for me, at that time, it felt like a lot, right? And he was like, no way. So it's like that belief in him grew and grew, as it did in me too. And I think there's no better way to convince someone than to simply put in the work, Like talk less initially, just do it and then let the results speak. Right.
Man, that's really well said. I yeah, I'm in a similar boat. Like my parents, kind of skeptical. They support me in so many things. I'm so grateful, but like I've taken such a weird path, like non-contemporary in a lot of ways. And some of my friends and family are like, What is this strange path you're going down?" But it's like I'm gonna just show you. I'm gonna keep going. I'm not even gonna talk about it if you're not interested. You can come watch if you want, but I'm gonna keep going. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah. And so I saw another video of yours and it said something about how like 6 o'clock PM, hard stop. Now it's time to relax. Explain to me the importance maybe of like not working 24/7 and actually having like a period of time where you can rest and a period of time where you
Yep.
can work. Like
Yep.
explain why you feel like that's important.
It's very important because I realized that a lot of people procrastinate because they have this craving, right? And maybe they don't know if they're going to get time to do whatever it is they want to do later in the day. Whereas if you just completely separate work and play, and you do, obviously, you do the work first. So, you do have to sacrifice a bit and get used to delaying that gratification. But here's the thing, you're not delaying it forever. I'm not saying delay it for 5 years or a year or even a month or a week. I'm saying just delay it until the end of your day, 6 p.m. Right? And people can go that long. Like willpower dies out. I don't think we all have unlimited willpower, especially within a given day, right? So it's going to get lower and lower, but people can last until like 5, 6 p.m., right? That's doable because you can see the end in sight. And then after that, you can do whatever you want. So that's why it's so effective. It's like when you're able to set that hard stop and know that you have time to do whatever you want later, you don't crave it as much. Right. And then also on top of that, you really try to honor your tasks and all the things you have to get done earlier in the day, get them done as quickly as possible so that you get that reward. Right. It's almost like what we talked about earlier, the loop, the habit loop.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I might take a strange, maybe unorthodox and probably maybe a negative path in this where it's like I've gotten into the habit of once like set like I work till like well, I don't know. My gym is kind of my reward at like 6 p.m. and then I hit the sauna, so like 6 to 8, that's kind of my reward. And then from 8 to like 2 a.m. or 1 a.m. I'm going back to work on this podcast. That's kind of my time where I'm like it's time to go. And so it's like I have this like I don't know, maybe it's negative that I'm working into the night, but it's like I find myself so unproductive when I first wake up. Like I'm just like, man, am I slow? Oh, I don't even have the energy. I don't have the motivation at all. But like once I get moving, I'm like, okay, yeah. I don't know. For some reason, I did a lot of research on this like sleep chronotype where it's like, is it effective for everyone to wake up at 6 a.m. or is it not? And like, there's some interesting biology that goes into this, like called sleep chronotypes, where there's early birds and then there's like night owls, and based off your ancestors in some sense, like some ancestors, some people's parents and grandparents and whatever, they might have been people who stayed up later to like keep watch overnight when like during the evening periods, and there were some people who woke up earlier. And so it's like when I sometimes hear people say you need to wake up at 6 a.m. to be successful, and I'm like, well, I do the exact opposite. I wake up at like 9:30 a.m. and then I go to bed at like 1:30 a.m. So it's like I have this weird, slightly shifted schedule, which maybe is bad due to the circadian rhythm. Like I'm not quite as in tune with the sun as I could be, but I find it maybe because of the habits I've built over the years, but it's like I find it, for me at least, if I forced myself to wake up at 6 a.m., I would be less productive because I know the evening time is like my hyper productivity time. But I was just curious, like maybe I'm totally wrong and like maybe I should change my habits and wake up at 6, but I was just curious your opinion of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that a lot. Like, especially with people who are more creative past careers. I mean, I think all entrepreneurs are more, I mean, we have creative and then we also have like the logical side, that just execution. But I personally think night owl, early bird, like that's something that we can change, right? I think it really isn't like fixed on us from birth. No one said the day I was born, hey, Leah, you're an early bird or you're a night owl. And I used to be, like just now you mentioned you feel like really productive and that flow state late at night. That used to be me. For the longest time, I believed that I was a night owl, right? Because after around, especially 8 p.m., it's like because I have that bit of urgency, right? Probably the urgency, but also it getting dark outside and feeling like there's no distractions around me, like nothing's moving, it's dark outside, my screen is lit up, it's the only bright thing. Like I felt so locked in. So I've been there. But I also realized like you can have
Mm.
that effect too in the morning when everyone's still sleeping, or most of the world is, and it's maybe still dark outside, right? So not saying you or anyone has to change, but for me, I definitely prefer the latter, which is, I'm going to change my sleep cycle and it's something I had to do. Okay. It's definitely something I
Hmm.
have to work on. Change my sleep cycle, wake up earlier. Okay. A bit earlier than the average person, but you don't have to wake up at like 5 a.m., right? There's no hard rule. Like it has to be 5 a.m. For me, it's 6:30. I like it that way. 7 a.m. I start work. Great. Very productive. So I think that urgency and that focus can really be programmed into any time of the day. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I maybe should try an early schedule. Like when my school classes are in the morning, I force myself to get up earlier and do that, and I do fine, and I can be productive in the morning. I don't know. Some parts of me is just like I enjoy being up late, but like maybe I am cutting into productivity. But either way, it's experimenting that I still have to do. And but yeah, and so I was gonna ask like, so what are your future goals as an individual, as a student, as a coach? What are you want to see yourself doing in the future? Like
Mm,
maybe in the next 2 to 5 years or 1 to 5 years.
absolutely. Appreciate that question. So I'm really just in grad school. Like this really gets to me because I'm paying what 25,000 every semester for Columbia. It's a good school, but it definitely hasn't lived up to my expectations. I think coming here just because it's one of the best, schools, Ivy League, you could say best in the world, or at least I thought it was. I had really high expectations in terms of the level of professors, just education in general. But I compared to my undergrad in the Netherlands, in a very average school in the Netherlands, but where education quality is very high already. Like it's just a standard, it's high everywhere in the Netherlands. And I don't really see a big difference, right? So that gets to me, but I still want to make the most of this 1 year I've left. Mainly just want to use this time to obviously learn, but more so immerse myself in a great, yeah, university, get to know my professors better, my classmates. My classmates have been the highlight so far. Like their experiences in the field of education and really whatever they do. Many of them are entrepreneurs too, or have some sort of background there. So that's been most valuable. And after graduating, though, this is where I get excited, most excited. So the plan is, I'm able to travel. I want to make use of that. I work from my laptop, right? Want to travel to some of my favorite cities, then decide where to settle, where to call maybe my first home, right? And the goal really is to continue scaling this coaching because I love coaching. I think there's still some missing pieces I'm trying to figure out in terms of like what exactly is the one thing I want to focus on. Because right now I have two areas. I've got time mastery and I've got business coaching. It's more of a back end offer. So what exactly do I want to focus on? It's probably going to take some, soul searching, deep digging. But yeah, just want to surround myself with people who are bigger, better, faster. Be the small fish, fish in the pond. Fish in the pond. I can't talk. Be like the smallest fish in the pond, right? So I can continue learning and observing and absorbing, right? So yeah, let's see how far we can go with this.
Man, that's amazing. I think you have tons of potential. I see you becoming a big name coach in a lot of ways. Like
Wow.
a lot of the people I meet, like, and I hear their drive and see how motivated they are, and I see the habits they formed. I'm like, mark my words, soon enough, X, Y, and Z are gonna be big names, and so it's like I see this happening, and
Thank you.
so I'm really excited for you, and I really I really love the idea of working remotely and just being able to be your own, you know, boss and create the life that you really want to live. And so it
Absolutely.
seems like you're doing that, and it's really amazing to hear. I'm
Yeah.
excited for you.
Absolutely. And I mean, same goes for you. Like, continue the podcast, right? I know it takes time. It's kind of like, I've heard it's slow. It's maybe similar to building a YouTube channel. Like, you just have to pump out episodes every week. But at a certain point, you're going to start ranking. People are going to start hearing about you. You're going to get a lot of referrals. So keep it up too.
Well,
Yeah.
thanks. And I was curious, another question. What are you studying in grad school? Like, what's the technical thing you're studying?
Yeah. So I'll explain why I'm even here, right? Because it sounds like I
Great,
want to be
great.
here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm here because in Asia specifically, and by the way, I'm half Chinese. So I speak Chinese. I can see myself moving back to China and maybe staying there for a few years here and there, maybe scaling my career there as well. And in Asia, if you come from you know, a name brand school, right? It's almost like buying luxury goods. If you come from a school that just has a really good reputation,
Like a high school?
college.
Okay, college.
I meant college. But high school, I mean, that helps too, but especially college. If you
Mm.
like go to a really good college and then you do something in the education industry in China, your chances of succeeding and the chance of someone like just trusting you with their kid, being like, here's my kid, please help him or her get into a great university, or please help him or her like do anything with an education, it's a lot easier, right? So it's just something, even though I don't agree with it, because I think where you went for college really doesn't determine much. But in certain Asian cultures, it means a lot. So that's the main reason. But another one is I was curious. I was truly curious. Like, what is one of the best schools in the US like? Like, what is it like to attend such a, and I say school, but I mean college.
Sure, sure.
So those two main reasons. Yeah.
Nice. And so you're studying something like education or
Education. Yeah, it's called
okay.
adult learning and leadership.
Mm,
Mhm.
man, I could see how you could use aspects of that into the business that you're building now anyways. So it's like
Mhm.
a nice double whammy in some ways.
For sure. I mean, the goal was also to tie it to the coaching side, but I just realized after getting in, like, theory only gets you so far, right? It's really if I can hire a coach online and he or she can teach me step by step how to get to X goal, the next goal, that's definitely going to be faster than just taking like random courses at college, right? So it's a bit slower, but you know, it's okay.
Yeah,
I'll enjoy it for a year longer.
exactly. And you're going to look back and be proud that you went through it even though you might not have needed it. It's like it just shows something about your character. Like I'm not a quitter. I'm going to try my best in whatever aspect. And I have a
Love
similar
that.
thing. Yeah.
Yes. How you do one thing's how you do everything. Right.
Man, that's well said. It's like, oh, I don't really need to go to school. I'm just gonna quit. It's like, well, what does that say about your ability to finish goals and get through hard processes? And
Yes.
it's like,
Absolutely. And it's like you too, right? You've got your family business, you've got your podcast. You could, if you wanted to, you could probably quit college, but you're not, right? You're finishing. So that's great.
yep. I every day I'm kind of like, oh, I wish I could quit, but it's like, no, I don't. I'm gonna finish it, and I'm gonna be proud that I did. My family's gonna be proud. I'm gonna be proud. It says something about me. It's like,
Mhm.
so yeah. I
Yep,
can really resonate. We have a similar situation in some ways, which is awesome.
for sure.
And I guess what would you say closing advice to someone who feels like they're wasting their time, wasting their life? Maybe they're 20 something and they feel like, they're not doing much with their life. What would you say to them to get them moving?
100%. I think it all starts with environment and mentorship. Like, you see the coaching industry booming. It's what, $1 trillion industry, maybe even more. I'm not sure about the exact numbers, but it's growing by billions every year. There's a reason for that, right? Or at least like hundreds of millions, right? There's a reason. It's because it's like the fastest way to get to where you want to be is simply find someone who's done it and learn from them, right? What faster way is there? It's like if you want to get okay, this is kind of a bad example, but if you were looking for the fastest way to get an A plus, like everything right on a test, well, it would to be to just copy, right? Copy like all the correct answers. So it's almost like that when you get a coach, right? But it's a moral way, right? Cheating on a test, I'm not saying you should do that. Please don't. But in terms of getting a coach, a mentor, right? It's a completely ethical way where you basically get a cheat sheet, right? You get the fastest way to get to your goals. So I would say, even if you're tight on money, because I used to be when I started investing in mentors, I had to save up for them, right? To save up for the first coaching program, the second coaching program, and then I had enough cash flow. So initially, look, you might have to save up. You might, I don't know, have to go into maybe a bit of debt, right? Whatever it is. But if you are certain that whoever you're hiring can show you how to get to your goal faster, just go for it, right? You're paying for speed and certainty. Yeah.
Yeah, that's well said. It's like you can either pay with time and lessons and mistakes, or you can pay for someone else's time and mistakes, and you can pay with your time or pay with money to use someone else's time and experience. And I'm like, I honestly, I have never even gone to a mentor or a coach for podcasting. I've done some free consultations, learned a ton, but I'm like, man, if I pulled the trigger and actually did like a month's worth or an ongoing process, it's like, man, and you're kind of inspiring me to maybe go down that route, because it's like that investment in myself is going to be worth it no matter what, in some sense, especially if I really trust the person. So
Yep.
I think you might have sold me on the idea that I should go and search. I have like two guys in my mind where I'm like, man, maybe I should give them a call. So
Yeah.
I think I will, because of you, honestly. So
Amazing.
that's cool.
Yeah. That's just my 2 cents, right? Like if I look at my growth over the last 2 years, and it really has only been 2.5 years max, it's just because I made fast decisions and I decided to go fast. Again, pay with my money instead of paying with my time, and feeling all frustrated and maybe probably giving up if I just tried to do it alone or not even starting. So you're definitely ahead in that sense, right? You've started your podcast, but definitely if you want to go fast, like just invest in yourself. Mm-hmm.
Will do, man. Well, I really appreciated you having me on. I think that's a perfect place to end. I think people who listen to this are going to be truly inspired to either A, start their entrepreneurial side hustle, B, become more productive with their day, or maybe even C, go find a mentor and learn. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I really thanks for coming on.
For sure. How, like, is there a certain way you like to wrap these up, or?
Well, I don't know. I pretty much just say thanks for coming on, and they say you're welcome. And so I don't know.
All that. Oh yeah, thanks so much for having me on, Harley. And I guess last message to leave you guys.
Oh,
we
perfect.
talked about mentorship already. That is a major one. So that's number one. One more would be, remember that how you do one thing is how you do everything. I said it earlier, but what it means is it's an attitude thing. Right? If you want to be successful in one area, let's say there's a sport, well, then treat your academics, treat whatever else you're doing with the same level of attention and excellence, right? Because none of your decisions are completely separate. I think it's really an attitude thing, right? Like attitude builds character. If you're able to treat every tiny thing with excellence and do it the best you can, that builds character. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really well said. Like, it's like you might be super passionate about, let's say like sports, so you're going to try so hard in sports, but it's like if you're not trying in the classroom also, it's like, I don't know, it's not a true reflection of who you are or who you could be. And it's like, I don't know if I'm even applying it in the correct sense, but it's like, I don't know, I guess, how would you, what's an example of someone who, how you do one thing is how you do everything, where it's like you could do everything lazily or everything amazingly. Is that kind of what you're saying? Where it's like you can either give 100% effort to everything, or you're going to give 70% because you're just an average effort giver.
Yeah. Like it's just hard. It's hard to give 100% on one thing and then like 50% on another, right? Or at least I think if it continues that way, like the chance of you dipping from 100% to then a lower number on whatever it is higher, because you just don't have that standard for yourself. Like 100% is not a standard. It's dependent on whatever you're doing. But if you're just my standard, if you say my standard is 100% in everything I do, well, then it's like it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to give your best, right? So,
Man, I love that. It's like give it your all no matter what, no matter maybe how passionate you are or not. It's still at the end of the day you can lay your head on the pillow and say, I tried my best and my work here I'm satisfied with and
yep,
other people are too. And
100%.
that's amazing. That's great closing thought. So thanks so much, Leah. Really
You're welcome.
appreciate it.
All right. Well, then take action, guys, and hope to see you soon.